Double Dragon 2: The Revenge, the pseudo-sequel/remake of the classic side-scrolling beat-em-up that started it all. Unless you played Renegade, but that's besides the point. Released in 1991 exclusively in Japan for the Sega Mega Drive, then the following year worldwide audiences would get a Mega Drive/Genesis port of Double Dragon 1. Because sure, why not? Double Dragon 2: The Revenge once again has you in control of the Lee brothers, Billy and Jimmy, who found out about the senseless murder of their girl and are out for revenge against this shadow black clan of killers and such. Now I'm going to assume the version of Double Dragon 2 most people are familiar with is the one that graced the Nintendo Entertainment System, which was a full-blown new game in and of itself. A superb game that is beloved, I'm sure. Double Dragon 2, the arcade game, on the other hand, is little more than a repackaged version of the first Double Dragon arcade game. Similar introduction, similar level layouts, similar traps and hazards, and there's even an invade enemy base message that pops up in the third mission. There's a couple new things, a couple new moves for both yourself and the various recycled grunts, and a new final boss battle against your own shadow, but for the most part, Double Dragon 2 is less of a proper sequel and more of a remixed version of the first game. Double Dragon 2 was known for its rather unique control scheme that was also featured in the game Renegade, wherein instead of proper punch and kick buttons, you had a left attack button and a right attack button. The idea being that you punched whatever was in front of you and kicked whatever was behind you, and this would change depending on which direction you were facing. It's a somewhat confusing setup, but once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad. There's also a number of special attacks you could pull off via button combinations, including the flying kick, the back elbow smash, and the much vaunted cyclone kick, which executes every so often, as is usually the case with these sorts of things. Okay, so let's not beat around the bush. Double Dragon 2 on the Mega Drive suffers from horrific slowdown, the likes of which can cause the game to chug when so much as a pixel is added to the screen out of nowhere. Even with only 2 or 3 characters on the screen, the game struggles to keep up with the action, with occasional yet brief pauses coming out of nowhere when things are getting slightly somewhat out of hand. I'll admit that sometimes I have a tendency to exaggerate these things, but in this case, it's not an exaggeration. This game really does chug. Hard. And the chugging slowdown also affects control to a degree, where response time is such a joke that it turns into a luck of the draw, trying to pull off moves you want to pull off and end up doing something else entirely. Eventually, it gets to a point where you're pianoing the buttons in hopes of getting anything out as long as it lands a fucking blow. It's a miracle that pressing a direction on the D-pad lets you move in that direction without the whole thing falling apart, but anything more than that is just asking for trouble. Now, Double Dragon 2 does have options, a skill select as well as the option to toggle the number of starting lives, and the game is generous enough to provide you with 5 continue credits. If only they could provide an option to play a functional version of Double Dragon 2 on the Mega Drive, that would have been better off. Part of me thinks they spent more time on the graphics than making a playable game because for whatever it's worth, Double Dragon 2 manages to replicate the arcade visuals quite well, at least in terms of the level layouts and the character designs. It's not the most detailed piece of work, however, mostly attributed to the lack of colors. The graphics are often somewhat simplistic and bland looking, as though this was conceived for an 8-bit format before they found themselves with 8 more bits, and the end result feels a little less polished. That said, it's not a bad looking game, and I've certainly seen worse in this regard. Sound fares a little better. Some arcade tracks made the cut to this home conversion, and they sound pretty good on the old Mega Drive. A few voice bites and grunts heard in the game have a somewhat grainy twang to them that is somewhat distracting but otherwise no worse for wear. Sound effects are what they are, nothing special. Overall, Double Dragon 2: The Revenge for the Sega Mega Drive is a goddamn travesty. It may look the part and even somewhat sound the part, but it most definitely does not play the part with its dreadful performance and consequently dreadful controls. This is a rare game, which means your likelihood of running into this one is either through emulation or one of those recent multi-cart things, which is what I'm using. In any event, this is not a good port by any stretch of the imagination, and if you're looking for some revenging Double Dragon action stuff, your best bet is the expanded yet superior NES conversion. Double Dragon 2 on the Mega Drive is just bad and should not be played by anyone. which is probably why they stayed in Japan, but that's just me. Good night.